Hello, welcome to a fresh episode of the Restoration Masterclass. We are in season 4. This is sponsored by DocuSketch, and I feel like this is a really critical season because we are at a critical kind of point in the restoration industry. I've been in it 11 years. I think Todd has been in it maybe longer than me. I'm not sure, but probably. I
A
don't
little
know.
bit.
A little bit.
Little,
Okay, we'll get there in a second,
yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
But this to me is kind of the most interesting point and kind of change shift within the industry that we've seen for so many reasons. I mean, claims behavior has changed, AI and technology is evolving faster than ever. And there's just a lot going on. Estimating has changed so much, documentation has changed, the way carrier relations and TP, everything's changed. We'll just leave it there. And then there's margin pressure. We're just going to add that into everything. All this perfect storm of everything shifting in the industry. So, Todd Sanjid, he is with DocuSketch, and we are going to talk today about what scaling really looks like so you can scale in a healthy way despite the margin pressure, despite kind of all these external circumstances that are affecting the industry. So, Todd, go ahead and introduce yourself. How long have you been in the industry, sir?
Oh, hey, thanks for having me. I have been in and out of it since about 2007. I
Okay.
owned a construction business at that time, and then the crash happened in '08, and that's where I really learned. I was still, me and my father were liquid, but I learned about the restoration industry and that landscape during the crash. A lot of contractors in the Southeast actually got into the restoration space when the crash happened and things of that nature, to my understanding. And then I owned and operated a insurance agency for a period of about 3 years, and so then I came to work and be a estimator on the construction side and work my way over into an operational role in the restoration world. So give or take, we'll say 11 years too. So I'll just say right about like you, even that because it in and out, so
Yeah.
it all works.
Yes. But then I feel like once people land here for sure, there's not a whole lot of moving in and out of it. Once you're like cemented and found your way, you're here, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the best industry to be in for sure.
it really is. Yeah, the people are amazing. So, okay. So we're talking about scaling. Everybody wants to scale. A lot of people throw out these kind of like sexy revenue numbers, whether at conventions or whatever that may be. But very few people talk about the margins. And, that top line number might be pretty, but that doesn't necessarily mean the company is doing well. So, what do you think companies are misunderstanding? What do you see companies misunderstanding the most when they're talking about scaling and trying to scale? What are they misunderstanding sometimes? Not everybody, but sometimes.
Yeah. No, I think that the ones that some of them are technology poor. So I was talking to somebody that actually had 14 pieces of technology in their tech stack.
Wow.
So yeah, and I work for a technology company, so that was eye-opening to me,
Yeah.
right? They're not necessarily leveraging the right technologies to benefit them. They're not capturing everything on a Power BI model, being able to track their WIP, being able to track things of that nature. They're just doing the work, so to speak. I got a lot I could talk about on that. Because I travel around the country very fortunately and get to see, roughly between 130, 140 operations a year, and they all operate differently, right? And we were just talking about it, and some of them are typically in different roles. If I go out the second time, they just move. It's ever evolving. So, and I would say not being able to leverage the right technology and the optimal space for any piece of technology. Most companies are only using about 40% of what that piece of technology will output.
Hmm.
They don't understand all the other variables that go into it that they can utilize within that realm. Instead, they just add another layer. And there's a lot of technologies out there and a lot of tools for
Mhm.
your tool belt per se. Excuse me. So there's a lot of good ones out there, but being able to leverage them more efficiently is probably something that I would say that they're missing out on.
So when the answer might just be the flip, but when you walk into a restoration company that is effectively scaling, what are some of the like synergies that you see? What are some of the
Yeah.
similar things you've seen between companies that are scaling well?
Yeah. No, their workflows are identified. If you ask
Mm.
somebody when you walk in there, what do you do? They don't say, "Oh, I do a little bit of everything." Right? I go out here and I write jobs sometimes. I go scope, I run jobs sometimes. Those are really inefficient operations. But the ones that I walk right into and they're like, "Oh, I'm a frontline responder. I go out here and do this." Or, I run the jobs on the recon side, or I'm a mitigation manager and I run the mitigation department. I'm an office manager. I have to track these certain things within the Power BI to see where we go. I'm an intake specialist. those people are usually dialing in their operation, and they're really filling it out, right? The leadership has really put them in a key place and identified exactly what their KPIs are, and they're attacking them efficiently. Now, we know in this industry it is a whirlwind, so it can't always be that smooth and efficient. But if you have found the ability as a leadership to make yourself necessarily irrelevant, to where if you're gone for a week, the things will run smooth and efficiently with the technology you put in place, with the system and the processes you put in place, that's what I see that the best companies are really doing well.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. So when you see companies that are scaling at a healthy rate, as we've
Mhm.
talked about, sometimes things shift like costs right now. I mean, gas is really, there's
Yeah.
just a lot of factors right now that could cause a company to go from that tipping point of like we were scaling well to now we need to adjust again because it is kind of this constant, especially if you're looking at numbers, kind of adjustment. So what are some of the things that you see when a company is going from healthy growth to kind of tipping into chaos a little bit?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I would say that they're number one, they're definitely not leveraging the technology that they
Mhm.
already pay for
Yep.
to the most efficiency that they possibly could. Number two, they're not leveraging the relationships that they cultivated over the key period. From a subcontractor standpoint, especially on the build back, you can't always give people consistent work, but you can maintain those relationships. So when chaos does ensue, you're able, you've got your systems and processes, you have your data check, and that's by using an effective CRM. That's by using a Power BI model where you
Mhm.
can track these things, where your touch points are. Those are really some key things that I would identify in operations that I see. Just being able to capture everything and just stay status quo, even when a cat event or a surge comes in, and being able to respond effectively and not just react to where like your hair is on fire. Yeah,
Act like your
I
hair's on
said
fire.
that's fun.
I,
Yeah, no, I laugh out loud is because when I go in and do a lot of these trainings, and I say that, like, the ones that are ran the most efficient can give me 2 hours of their time and they don't even need to check their phones, right? And we know
mhm.
how crazy it is. And the ones that aren't, if a call comes in, it's like half the room has to stand up and go and answer it and go do here. And it's just so many different variables. And so when we get into the scaling piece, if you can't effectively handle a basic intake of a call, what are you going to do when you get 77 in an hour? That's what I would say.
So a lot of companies now are like leverage. We're talking about building in more efficiencies into your company, right? And a lot
Mhm.
of companies are like, "Ooh, I'm building these AI tools. I'm doing all of these
Yeah.
things." Is that always building in efficiency? Like, where's kind of our tipping point here of like, oh, where is the good point of technology now? We're recording this in the middle of May in 2026. I will say that because it's changing so fast. But like,
Yeah,
where's it
it'll
at now?
change in
Like,
a
where's
couple
the
of
level of
weeks.
efficiencies now? And is there a point where it's like you maybe went too far? I don't know.
Right. I would say the most efficient way that I've seen is where the biggest bottleneck in our industry has always been, and that's settling the claims
Yeah.
efficiently by utilizing centralized estimating. And yeah, people hear that and they worry about estimators in particular, worry about their job being taken away. But what it really does, it reduces the friction. It allows you to spend more time settling the claim, being able to get things done, and you're able to build additional relationships with that. Furthermore, I've seen that more people are able to scale more efficiently by taking that data clump out on that process. And I was telling you earlier, I just got off the phone with a gentleman that has started utilizing a process. And yes, it is DocuSketch, but just centralized estimating in general. And the way that his operation works is he has his project manager go out there as soon as the MIT is done with the demo, not done with the drawing, but done with the demo,
Hmm.
goes out there and inspects to be able to write a rebuild estimate. And he had found that they were inspecting on average 3 jobs a day, and in the settlement process of these jobs, that he was saving each PM about 2 hours of job on the data capture. And I felt that sounded like a large number to me because on average I'm hearing about 30 to 60 minutes. But the way that they're capturing it, it's literally open up about 30 hours per week. And so yes, that's with DocuSketches, but that would be with any centralized estimating model, being able to use it efficiently. And that's by leveraging tools that are already at disposal for owners out there to be able to insert into their operation. So when that influx does come, they're able to handle it accordingly.
So what do you tell the contractors who because you kind of alluded to this at the beginning, people nervous about centralized estimating or
Yeah.
outsourcing it, whatever. The contractors who are like, I don't want to give that up. What if it makes it hard? What if I get more pushback from an adjuster? What
Mm,
if I have all of these problems and how am I going to justify it if I didn't write it? How do I know it's different?
right.
Like, I
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are great questions. And I would say being able to use it and leverage it with the right team. So you can't, I wouldn't just bring somebody in that knows nothing about the industry and then say, hey, I'm going to hire or outsource all this. You don't know exactly, maybe you don't know Symbility, right? But
Mhm.
you know how to talk to people. And a lot of people do use that model and it works for some. But to your point, when settling a claim, if you don't understand what's in that line item detail and you don't understand exactly what was written on that estimate, it can even further more the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And so, what I would tell you is the best way is to have buy in from leadership. Leadership would have to have the buy in order for your team to feel comfortable in it. And they would have to trust that this is just an additional tool within the
Hmm.
same technology in order to help you generate more revenue and also serve your customer base even more efficiently than you already are doing. Um, that's what I would say. It's going to reduce your F&OL to job close time. We've seen it year after year. I utilized it before I was at DocuSketch, and now at DocuSketch, being able to see it grow and evolve with people, and now with the potential for AI to enter into that space, right? And AI is going to be a great leverage tool, and it's going to be a tool, that hopefully the industry is very strong on the contractor side, and hopefully will make carriers more efficient as well. But if your systems and processes aren't dialed in with this AI, it's going to continue the chaos that you already have in the operation.
Are you seeing some customers be able to better serve their customers when their tech
Yeah.
is in the right spot? I feel like that's a big pushback. And
Yeah,
in today's society, we expect good customer service at this point. Like,
yeah,
there's really no
absolutely.
space to not do it well, right?
That's very true. Yes, and we hear that a lot. I hear it daily, whether I'm in the field and whatnot. They're able to really answer the phones
Mhm.
and be more efficient on handling the customer's needs, right? Because all the customers always, they don't mean to, but you feel like they think that's the only job you're working on. When really you
Yes.
got 38 other fires over here. We're really good in this industry at being firemen and women. We put the fires out right and left. There's always something going on, I should say. So being able to remove that data
Yeah.
entry, which is a non-revenue generating task, into serving your customer more efficiently and maybe generating some what we call liquid gold, some referrals
Hmm.
and some positive online reviews,
Hmm.
because that comes with communication, because in the apps nobody wants to make the call when it's negative information that you have to give the customer, right? You can't
Yep.
get out there today, you can't, but they're going to call you, and in the void of absence of being able to communicate, negativity arises. And that is when some of your headaches can come, even when the job started off so well. Most jobs are going to hit a hiccup at some point. And
Yes.
that's what I'm definitely learning, traveling around and talking to everybody. Being able to manage those by leveraging your tools and systems and your technology has really found a way for them to be able to answer the customers more efficiently and serve them.
Yes. Yeah. It's way easier to be honest and open upfront and be ahead of what's happening than have the customer find out later and there be a lack of communication. And that doesn't go well. Communication goes a
No.
long way and freeing up
Yes, ma'am.
time to make the communication possible because it is true that people get really bogged down with wood before with the paperwork they had to do and the estimates they had to write and finding all those line items and everything that's uploading photos, labeling photos. We could go on and on. It's a lot.
Right. Yes, ma'am. And then the TPA, if you're on a
Oh,
TPA, that's a whole nother avenue of headache now, right?
yes.
So yes.
Yes, that could be another whole podcast or five all by itself. So we'll save that one for another one. Okay, before we wrap it up, if you were to give restorers one tip from the hundreds that you visit a year and thousands that you've probably visited over the years, one tip to become more scalable over the next 12 months, especially considering how fast things are changing.
Oof, one tip: empower your team. I would say that the leadership at the levels that I see have empowered their team to essentially, like I said, make themselves irrelevant.
Yep.
Empower your team, trust your team in order to build and scale efficiently. Hire the right people. Don't just hire warm bodies. Hire the right people for your culture, and trust them to do the job that you have instilled them. I've seen that work so efficiently, where leadership is just like, you'll be meeting with them. You're like, yes, I've gotten X, Y, and Z going on. Oh, no problem. Mike's got it.
Yep.
I'm fine. He'll update me accordingly. So being able to find a way to work on the business as you scale the next 12 months instead of in the day to day, and empowering your teams to be able to make executive decisions
Mhm.
without your input, I would say those are really key avenues to be able to scale efficiently.
There are enough ways to have bottlenecks. You don't need leadership to be the additional bottleneck. That's for
Yes, ma'am.
sure. Yes. All right, Todd. Well, thank you so much. So, for people who are watching, you can find all the masterclass episodes on CNR's YouTube page, on our website. DocuSketch also shares them as well. So, Todd, thank you so much. This was really fun.